I think we all have that one friend who's obsessed with a video game franchise and keeps on nagging you to play it. Now, this person wasn't actually my friend, which sounds more rude than it actually is, but he was in fact a very nice former colleague, and he kept on going on and on and on about Final Fantasy. So at one point, I asked him, about 2 years ago, which one should I try for my first one, and he told me to get Final Fantasy VII Rebirth when it releases. I'm an honest man, I clearly didn't try it then, and I kind of do feel bad about it. But I hope 2 years later, I could do you right, my guy. Pause. Not like that. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is a 2024 action role-playing game developed by Square Enix and a sequel to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's apparently the second one in a trilogy to remake the original Final Fantasy VII from 1997, which I think is kind of crazy because surely a game made nearly 30 years ago doesn't require 3 full remakes, but according to my brief research beforehand, they decided to do a trilogy to expand sections of the original game to a fully fledged video game. I think that's a very interesting choice and it can go both ways, but I don't know anything about Final Fantasy VII, so I'm not going to comment on it. Instead, I'll be reviewing this game, Rebirth, in just 2 hours of playtime, which is of course not enough time for anyone to properly review a video game. However, it is the time that Steam will allow you to refund one. Whilst you might not be able to review a video game in that time period, you sure as hell can get an idea on if you want to spend the next 50 or so hours within that game's world. And also, it's just a little bit of fun doing it this way. So I invite every single one of you beautiful people watching this that get the idea of entertainment to scroll down to the comment section and laugh at the people who clearly don't get it. And whilst you're down there, let me know what you think of this game, drop a like to really help me out and push this video in the algorithm, and subscribe to never miss an episode of this silly series. Now let's go over the story, gameplay, and everything in between, and answer the question, should you refund Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? I usually don't show the menu of a video game as it's a menu. There are settings, and unless they do something revolutionary, there's no point in mentioning it. Yet, there's actually something worth mentioning. The story so far option. I'm not going to go over what that exactly was, as this video is about Rebirth, but I really do appreciate that the game gives you quite a detailed overview on what happened in the Final Fantasy VII Remake, so you don't have to watch a YouTube video on it. This also allows you to just pick up this game and understand some of the things that are happening related to the previous one. We pick up the normal mode setting, this is actually important for later, and the game starts us off with a cinematic of the main character Cloud on a motorcycle, being chased by some sort of army militia and an edgy dude named Sephiroth menacingly standing somewhere, which I'm assuming is the bad guy, telling me that he is waiting for me. We then switch over to a news report of Midgar being in rumbles as it has apparently been bombed. Cheerful start to the game, and hey, that's our hero, I think. Nearly dead with some other dude named Zack holding us up. Truthfully, at this point, I was kind of confused on what was going on, but hey, just keep going. He drops Cloud off with some cute girl, and we run off as Zack to get into our first bit of proper gameplay. Because apparently, in one of those choppers that is flying over, there's a girl that we want to save. The first thing I noticed when I started playing was that the movement is quite fast. Not just the running around itself, but also the sensitivity of the camera. Okay, cool. Let me tweak that real... oh wait, there are no options here. Apparently, I had to go back to the main menu to change some stuff and then go back in. And when I got to the main menu, I found out that there was no option for sensitivity, which is not the worst thing in the world. We can get used to it, but it is a bit of a strange feature, or lack thereof, as when you jump into a game, the first thing a lot of people, including myself, would like to adjust, when they can finally control the character, are some simple settings like sensitivity or certain controller things, especially in a safe area like this. It's a very minor thing, but a very curious one indeed, and thankfully this is only for this section though. Once you're in the actual game, you can adjust your settings anywhere, but why not here? We run through the factory to the roof to find the crash chopper that prompted us to go there in the first place, and come across some more choppers still flying over. One having the girl inside, whose name is Aerith. This is where we get into our first bit of combat. And funnily enough, there are no tutorials or pop-ups or a press square to attack thing at all. It's actually explained later. but yet again, a very curious choice. Sure, it's not hard to figure it out yourself. I mean, it's a video game. Like, just press buttons and at some point you'll probably press the right one. But the press square to attack tutorial will actually come up later, so it exists. Just implement it here. Anyway, we will go into the combat a lot more in just a moment, but overall it feels quite satisfying to slash on people with the big old blade we have, and dodging feels very responsive too. From what I've gathered from my first encounter is that we will be doing a lot of dodge slashing, and I'm all for it. We save Arif and see a dead doggo, which made me really sad, but we have to get out of here as there are more soldiers on the way trying to find us. We then switch to Cloud's perspective, with him telling a story from about 5 years ago relating to Sephiroth, who Cloud apparently has worked with in the past. If it sounds like I missed out on something here and you're a bit confused, don't worry. Me too, because this is literally what happens. Guess we just have to let it all play out and we will understand it eventually. At least, I hope so. I do have to say though, that this game, especially early on, is very cutscene heavy, which is not bad per se. I actually quite enjoy it, as I'm someone who can appreciate a good story, but in like 15 minutes of recording, we have played like 5. This balances out later, of course, I'm sure of it, but it is an interesting way to approach the start of the game, especially to people who just want to jump into it, but I guess it's just not that type of game. Back to Cloud's story, he was part of the soldier program, which Sephiroth was also a part of and seemingly the leader of this squad. After some dialogue in the van, pretty much 16-year-old Cloud being impatient, and then fighting as Sephiroth, taking out some monsters, we make our way to a town called Nibelheim, which apparently is Cloud's hometown. There's a reactor here that has been compromised, and it's our job to figure out what happened and fix it. Simple enough. Also, this might just be me, but the voice of Sephiroth really suits his character, but just not his face.
She died shortly after I was born.
Just me? Anyway, this is where the game truly starts and sets you free a little bit. We are tasked with exploring the town a little bit, and before we are even able to do so, we get our first couple of tutorial pop-ups, like how we can open the menu and manage some things, or how we can dodge/jump depending on the terrain using circle. And wouldn't it have been great to have one of those earlier for attacking? It's petty, I know, but trust me, it is actually for good reasons. I really like how you can enlarge the tutorials as well, from the little box to the full screen size version of it. As someone with quite poor eyesight, this is really helpful and I can truly appreciate it, because a lot of games just don't do it and it makes it hard to look at some of the tutorials in them. I scour the menus a bit, find out that there are move combinations like L1 plus circle, square or X, and some other synergy moves we can do. Cool, we have to test it out later. But I think it's a good time to mention that there are actually 2 combat styles in this game. Classic and active. From what I've gathered about Classic, as I wasn't able to test this because when I enabled it about 25 minutes or so before my timer went off, there were just no more combat encounters. But pretty much, Classic is more like how it was in the original games, where the game automates your character's basic attacks and defenses, so you can focus on using commands from the command menu, like magic and abilities, the abilities that are the move combinations that I found earlier. I played the game on the active combat mode, which makes it more like a hack and slash dodging game. I honestly think that this is an interesting feature, which I can really appreciate, as I'm personally not really interested in the classic combat, but having it for the OG players is just a great thing, and this way everyone is happy, right? I honestly can't wait for the essay in the comment section that they watered down the OG combat and didn't make the new combat system good enough either, compared to some other Final Fantasies that did apply this or something. Regardless of that fact, our mission is to explore the town a little bit, and we do so. We get into the inn, talk to some people, and learn about Tifa, which is the girl next to me in the present, but also was the one in the cutscene earlier that held us. At least, I think so. She apparently is also from this town and one of their best martial artists. Cool. We continue climbing the tower in the middle of town before visiting our mum. She seems very happy to see us, but Cloud is acting like the typical disinterested 16-year-old who thinks his mom is cringe or something. Oh boy, we were such big idiots at that age, man. Love my mom, shout out my mom. After our little catch up, we link back up with Sephiroth and the gang, who lays out that we need to go up the mountain to the reactor with a guide, as we're simply just not able to make it up there ourselves. That guide? Yep, that's Tifa. This is also where I figured out that this is Sephiroth's Evil's origins arc, not gonna lie, so far, he kind of seemed like a stand-up guy, and it was probably mentioned earlier that this was his evil origin story, but I might have just missed it. I think it's time we talk about the graphics. Whilst the game explains some simple mechanics to us, like when you run, you automatically mantle and climb objects, which I really appreciate, instead of just having to spam buttons to kind of figure out what you can and cannot climb up, and how there are these boxes that contain items we actually pick up automatically. Yay, no Square spam. Okay, let's actually talk about the graphics. The game looks stunning and is such an interesting blend between semi-realistic looking graphics and the more anime-esque art style the game is set in. The blend of these two are very well done in my opinion, just like the blend of the fantasy-like aesthetic of things and the more industrial modernness that's also clearly a part of this game with the factories and the choppers. I also want to comment on that I think that the artistic style really just suits what is going on with the franchise. As someone who's never played a Final Fantasy game before, I actually recognize it as one by just looking at it, yet the developers also made it look graphically gorgeous with the detailed scenery and lighting. See Game Freak, you can actually have the best of both worlds. One day we get a good looking Pokemon game, surely. Yeah, that will never happen, I'm afraid. Unfortunately, I did have some performance hiccups here and there. I'm playing this on PC and my specs are pretty good. I got a 4070 Super, 64GB of liquid gold, an AMD Ryzen 9 7900X. Safe to say, I should be running this game smoothly, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case in certain scenarios. Not a big deal, as it was usually very brief, but hey, it's a review, I have to mention it. Just like all the gorgeous music in the game you've been hearing in the background of this video. Hey, would you look at that? It's the "This is how you attack" tutorial. I had to press square. Damn. Apparently, after you dodge and press square, you can launch a range attack, and by holding it, you can unleash an aerial combo, which is pretty neat. The little menu you see me open up are actually the R1 plus button combinations I found earlier, just in menu form. To cast these, you need ATB, which you get by whacking enemies, and obviously these attacks do more damage. The game also teaches us about sneak attacks or first strikes doing more damage, as well as giving some more ATB when landed, how we cast the ATB spells, which we've already figured out, how to parry, which I'm terrible at, so we will be dodgy Andy, and that we can cast spells both damaging and healing. You might have also noticed that with every battle we gain EXP, which obviously is to level up your character, AP, which are ability points to level up spells, gears, abilities and stat boost, and Gil, which is simply the currency in the game. As a RuneScape player, I really like seeing number go up, but I actually did not learn about how the leveling system works in the 2 hours of playing, as we were already level 40 and didn't level up during it. The beauty of this series, eh? We do learn about materia though, another leveling system which is pretty much how you unlock spells, and by casting spells they gain AP and get stronger. Simple enough, and this concept also applies to your weapons and gear. Enough explaining of systems for now, we continue wandering around a bit, go the wrong way, learn about blue squares on the ground where you can do an action like squeezing through a wall, and make our way towards the first part of the factory, fight a new monster, which I managed to actually parry a few times. I know, I'm amazing at the game, and we run into our first puzzle. Well, kind of. It's very simple. There's bad gas, we need to clean it to open an elevator, and we need to find a way to do so, and hey, would you look at that, there's a conveniently placed air purifier here. Let's use it, and voila, the air is clean and we can use the elevator. Simple, but very satisfying. Next up is a hanging bridge that the characters are scared to go over. What can go... Yeah, of course. Everyone saw that one coming from like a mile away. Rip that one soldier, by the way, who floated down the stream. F in the chat, boys. But we survived and had to find another way into the power plant. Sorry, it wasn't actually a factory. But yeah, as you can tell, the game is obviously very tutorial heavy at this point, which I quite like. But I can also imagine that it's super annoying for someone who is a Final Fantasy veteran. But hey, it kind of has to be done for people like myself. Anyway, bench is good, you can rest and restore stats. At this point, Sephiroth has joined my party and I can actually play as him or Cloud. Okay, cool. And forgive me for this, as I still don't really understand how it works, but I can comment the characters I'm not playing as and tell them to do things, yet they also do things on their own. I really don't get it, but it sounds pretty cool, I suppose, and there's probably a whole system behind it that you can utilize later on, but for now, I just kind of played Sephiroth. And can we also just quickly talk about how much it sucks you can't play this online with friends, because it honestly would have been quite sick. I swear to God, these gaming companies just don't think us gamers can actually have friends or something, but hey ho, I digress. Before I start skipping over some things, as I'm not trying to waste your time here, the video is already quite long, there is a pretty sick lore bomb dropped in this cave as we enter. Here we see a Mako spring. Mako is used as an energy source in the power plants, and I just love how Cloud stated, "We will never run out," after Tifa asked if we would run out if we keep using it as an energy source. Oh, the irony with real life. Yet, it's not just the fossil fuel of this world, it also gives us the ability to cast our magical spells and is related to people called the Ancients. Not gonna lie, as a history buff, even though this is a fantasy game, I love myself some Ancients. We proceed to make it out of the cave, fight some more monsters, and learn about non-parryable attacks. So, hashtag Dodge Gang OP, I guess. We then get into a bit of a tougher battle where we learn about synergy skills, the other ones I noticed earlier, and these are pretty much attacks you can do by having parry up and then pressing the right button combinations, which allow you to combine the powers of yourself and your allies into a bigger attack, which changes depending on what allies you have, which I think is very cool stuff, and I can see some really cool combinations coming from this long term. And no, I have not forgotten about the thing I mentioned earlier regarding difficulty. We will get to it. After some more running, another air pollution puzzle, we enter a suspiciously large area. You could even call it an arena. Bit of an odd choice to put here. Bit boring to explore. Yeah, of course. Of course it's a boss arena. Literally the definition of the meme. This is a boss arena if I've ever seen one. Us versus the Materia Guardian. The time to put all that we have learned into action against a stronger enemy. Kudos to Square Enix for this one. Whilst there's a lot of information dropped to you, it's one by one, and it's very satisfying to apply all of it in a bit of a harder boss fight, which felt very epic by the way, with some cutscenes in between, and that is exactly what it should feel like, making me very excited for what's to come next, as this is the first ever boss fight. I can't imagine what the proper end boss, for example, is like. It's finally time to enter the reactor, so me and Sephiroth go down there to find a lab where some disgusting looking creature attacks us. Sephiroth is on it and says it, but he also seems kind of off, as Genova is what this place or project is called, and come to find out that's the name of his mom, which I'm assuming is clearly not a common name because he starts to be really edgy about everything here. So far, he has been quite a chill guy to be honest, but he became very angry about what's happening here, as it wasn't just animal experiments here, but also humans, which, not gonna lie, I figured it was mainly humans judging by the creature earlier, and I didn't even think about animals, but then Sephiroth became one of those crazy TikTok girlies and got an existential crisis kind of out of nowhere about him even being human, because this thing is named after his mom. Honestly, no clue. We then start to ramble on about how he has been special since being a child, yada yada yada. I mean, I've also been special, but I guess just not that kind of special. All joking aside, it's interesting to see him kind of switching up here, as there's clearly something not right with this dude, which might be the biggest understatement of the century, as he proceeds to lock himself up in the basement of a mansion, once we get out of the reactor, within the town, and starts reading about the Ancients, the project, and eventually kind of figuring out who he truly is. See? Reading is bad for you after all, because he didn't just go absolutely nuts, he also decided to burn down the whole damn town and kill anyone who was standing in his way. Yeah, about that. That escalated quite quickly. Cloud then tries to save his mother, which sadly he fails at, is exactly why you should appreciate every moment you have with your loved ones, and tries to chase after Sephiroth, but Cloud is too weak at the time, but he did survive obviously because, I mean, otherwise he could not tell the story in hindsight, right? And learns that Sephiroth fled back to the reactor, or well, lab, to free his mother. We chase after him and find Tifa there, who gets sliced and dies? Which is very confusing because she is sitting on the couch in the present day, so she clearly didn't die, but she also did. I don't know. Speaking of confusion, after Sephiroth completed his evil villain arc, he decides not to kill us? And this is where my timer went off, but damn, I have so many questions. Also, what are those weird light blue glitches we sometimes see? I put one on the screen right now, but what is going on? And I'm gonna be honest, Cloud doesn't remember what happened afterwards, which is also kind of strange, so yeah, no clue on what's really happening. Oh well, let's answer the question, should you refund Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? I think we should start off with the obvious. This game is an information overload for someone who's never played a Final Fantasy game before. This is not per se a negative or a positive, but my lord. The complexity of combat, upgrades, general gameplay systems and lore. There is a lot, but thankfully it's all well paced and explained. Everything is one by one, you learn how to do simple attacks, then do your combination attacks, parry and dodging, etc. This is very much needed as there's just so much to learn, but it is worthwhile because the moves you do in combat feel very satisfying and seeing all the different combos you can do is pretty cool. And that's just with Cloud and Sephiroth. Seeing as you can have 4 people in your party, at least from what I understand, I'm assuming there's a lot of variety to be had, and with upgrades coming into play as well, it seems like you can truly play how you would like to. Remember how I mentioned difficulty earlier? Normal mode is fine, I guess, but having difficulty settings is actually a great thing too. The game is doable at this point, but if it gets too hard and becomes kind of a slog, I'm not afraid to turn it down during gameplay. Because truthfully, as an adult, I just want to enjoy a video game, and to me that enjoyment doesn't come out of being beat up over and over and over again until I learn a boss, which I can see others enjoying, but I care more about just feeling like I'm good at the game. I don't actually have to be good at it, as I just want to enjoy the story on top of some fun gameplay. Because oh boy, I have so many questions about the story. What is Sephiroth planning? Who are these ancients and how do they come into play? What the hell happened in that lab? What was that whole bombing about at the beginning? Why is Tifa still alive when she clearly died? And what is our purpose in all of this? I mean, stopping it of course, it's a hero RPG after all, but so many questions and I love it. Not everything is great though. As mentioned before, the game looks gorgeous, but sometimes doesn't run too well. And whilst there are step-by-step tutorials to a lot of the upgrade systems, there are a lot of upgrade systems. Keep in mind, we didn't even see what happens when you level up, how to upgrade your gear, or even abilities. Something we also didn't experience was the fact that this game apparently does have large open world zones for you to explore, but everything was just very linear up until this point. Not having encountered these aspects is obviously the beauty of the way I review these games, literally the point of it, but if you are looking for something less linear regarding exploration and having all those upgrade systems early on to explore, then this wasn't the best showing in the first 2 hours, in case you were debating on refunding it or not. That sounds extremely nitpicky, and of course it is, because quite frankly, I just really enjoyed myself playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I would for sure not refund it. I can see people who want an instant, more free open world experience, less tied to content cutscenes and lore galore, not enjoying this game. But I just love that kind of stuff, man. And even though I'm a bit scared for the upgrade systems still to be introduced, as it can just be a bit overwhelming for me, not gonna lie, I'm also super excited to explore more of this world, find out what's going on, and slap some more monsters with the smooth and satisfying combat. Oh, and a little prediction here, something is for sure going on with Cloud, as he seems very evasive and dodgy when it comes to his past. Maybe he's been brainwashed or something, I don't know. So to my former colleague, I'm sorry my dude, I should have listened to you sooner, as these games seem to be a lot of fun, and even though I won't be able to tell the people watching it if it's a good remake or not, as I obviously didn't play the original, I can for sure tell them that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is worth a shot and that you were absolutely right to keep going on and on and on about it. But what do you think of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please educate me on some of the things I might have misunderstood or missed, and leave a like to help me out. Obviously subscribe to never miss an episode of this silly series. And my name is Chev, and I hope you have a lovely day.